before coming to the agenda of today's webinar, and then also presenting our speakers in more detail. So many of you might have already met my colleagues, Jenny, Mayara, and Nuria. We are working at the International Trade Center, which is the joint organization of the UN and the WTO. And within our team, which is the Youth and Trade team, we mostly focus on supporting young people, startups, hubs as you to kind of grow and increase their skills and competences. And this is also why we have invited to today's webinar 4 different speakers, Charlina, as I said, Janice, Basil, and Sarah. Now let me first introduce Jalinda, who is the CEO of Lankan Angel Network and the related angel fund. And it's very impressive because this fund is Sri Lanka's first micro venture capital fund, mostly dedicated to providing support to early stage startups. Moreover, there's a long-standing experience in building startup ecosystems in Sri Lanka, and also mentoring is important. Now, Janice, our second panelist, is the country head of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, based in Zambia, and she's previously worked and studied also in the UK. Now, our third panelist, Basil, he has more than 15 years of professional and academic experience in the field of project management and entrepreneurship. He's currently working at Islamic University in Gaza as the director of a business and technology incubator. Our fourth panelist, Sarah, she's the co-founder and chief operating officer of African Entrepreneur Collective, which is a social enterprise business accelerator in East Africa. And Sarah has more than 20 years of experience in growing and managing social impact organizations. Now, warm welcome to our 4 speakers. We are super happy that you've all come together here, and we are looking forward to the discussion in the next hour. So as I said, like the main part of today's webinar will be a discussion with our 4 panelists, and we really encourage you as audience to write your comments, possible questions in a chat box so we can keep this as interactive as possible. But before we come to this discussion, my colleague Nuria, she will give us a brief introduction and give us more insights on the topics of partnerships. Why is it important for hubs and business institutions to focus on partnerships? What are the related benefits and risks? And yeah, in the end, then we will also use the Jamboard to capture the most important highlights of today's session. So without further ado, Nuria, I hand it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Julia, for this introduction, and welcome everyone. As mentioned by Julia before we start the discussion with the great speakers that we have today, I would like to mention a couple of points regarding partnerships that we have from the institutional strengthening experience at ITC. So first of all, we know that one institution alone cannot support entrepreneurs in all ways. And therefore, a key way to empower your organization to achieve the results that you need is through partnerships. So we've gathered here some of the potential benefits that we've seen to partnerships. And this includes the access to knowledge, mitigating the risk and reducing potential mistakes from your organization, but also enhancing your professional skills and competencies, and bringing innovation by developing new ways of addressing challenges. Partnerships can also bring you access to people, drawing on a wider pool of technical expertise, experience, skills, and networks. It can increase your effectiveness as an institution, supporting you to create more appropriate services for the entrepreneurs. And also it can bring some efficiency to your organization by reducing costs or supporting you financially, but also by avoiding duplication in the ecosystem. Reputation and credibility are also part of building partnerships. This can be both nationally and internationally. And finally, it can also support you with long-term stability and impact, because when you're being more efficient and more effective, this also translates into the sustainable impact for your organization. So you can see some examples here in the slide. On how hubs need a network of partners to contribute to and to grow the local entrepreneurship ecosystem. But in addition to the benefits that we mentioned and the ones that will be mentioned during the session today, partnering is not a quick fix or a risk-free option. And we've seen that the cost of partnering can also be high because of the time that you need to explore, to establish, and to manage the partner relationships. So quite often in its early stages of the partnership, there can be a catch-22 in the sense that partners invest time, energy, and ideas, often over months or even years, and then continue to stick with the partnership even when the relationship is no longer beneficial. So we've seen during our institutional strengthening work at ITC some potential risks in mismanaging those partnerships, such as the loss of autonomy, conflicts of interest, drain on resources, implementation challenges, negative reputation impact. So we really think that partnership management deserves your attention. But this is also what you told us during the brainstorming session that we had in July. And this is also why we are here today to discuss this. So I will just leave you with some questions that we've seen that are critical just before we start or we jump into the topic of partnerships with our speakers. So first is to be aware, what asset do you seek to leverage from a partner? So what do you want from them? Second, what do they want from you? So what leverage do you offer to your partner? And third, how are you going to match those expectations to define a common goal and to agree on specific outcomes and impact for this partnership? So we know that partnerships are most successful when there is this understanding of each other's priority and when there's clarity on these results and the value that is expected. So, and this is what we are going to talk about. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about this points about the benefits, the risks, and managing these partnerships with our experienced speakers. So now, with no further ado, I will now leave it to them to discuss all these points and to tell us more about their experiences. So if I may start, we might start discussing how each of the speakers today have handled partnerships. And I will start with Chalinda. So Chalinda, welcome again. And it would be great if you could tell us about your experience with partnerships in the past and how have you leveraged partnerships for strengthening your program and the results.
Great. Thank you, Nuria and Julia, for those introductions. It's wonderful to be here. Good evening, good afternoon, depending on which time zones you guys are. So I think the partnerships obviously evolve. So when I first started 10 years back, the landscape was very different. We didn't have any infrastructure. We didn't have any entrepreneurs. There was no, organization. Most of the people were trying to, interested in leaving the country because we had a civil war and we just finished the civil war. So a lot of the partnerships at that time was focused on creating the need for entrepreneurship. So we found that there were a lot of young kids with brilliant ideas, but they've never really thought about converting that idea into a startup. And for them, how do you support them? So majority of the time, what we partnered was with organizations that were within the country, whether it was large corporates who would expose their facilities and share their story of how they started, to other government organizations that would share their resources, and so on. But if you look at the landscape, the startup landscape today, it's completely different. I personally don't believe in a city or a country-based startup ecosystem. There is no such thing as a Sri Lankan startup ecosystem or a Silicon Valley. Right now, it's much more broad. I think all these ecosystems have decentralized, and we have the opportunity to work with different regional markets. So right now, a lot of the work that we do is with partners who are outside Sri Lanka. And I broadly categorize them into three. One is on the knowledge side of things. So that is with regards to everything from building a product, whether it's product management related ones, or knowledge in terms of market access. How do you take your product from Sri Lanka to Cambodia or Vietnam, or access the more mature market like India, which is a brother or big brother. So that's one side of it. Second side of it is how do we strengthen the local ecosystem so that startups can actually go and move about different markets. Because it's not as simple as you getting on a flight, going into a country and start on partnerships. You need to have people in those respective markets who will provide you with information around how does business happen. I'll give you a very good example. So Indian ecosystem is very near to us. It's one of the fastest growing, or the fastest growing ecosystem in the world right now, and people call it the Indian ecosystem. But if you go to India, if you are in Bangalore and if you're in Mumbai, you would realize that it's completely different. It's like two different countries itself. And you go to a Chennai, that's another completely different to both of these. So there's a lot of nuances that you need to really pick up, everything from how do you do business, how do you establish partnerships, and all of that. The fundamental two things in any of these is trust and transparency. I think rightly, as you mentioned in your slide deck, because startups are very hot topic, everybody is getting into this startup bandwagon, whether it's corporates, governments, everybody wants to be a part of startups now. They don't want to be left out. And immediately we get a lot of requests for partners, and in the past years we've got burnt. Some of the work that we've done might have got stolen, or the identity kind of who really started that. These things happen. The lesson in that is every time that happens now, what I do is I invite them for our programs, and I tell them, look, it's great that you want to work with entrepreneurs. Come work with us. We have this program, participate as volunteers, and we see how they operate. Because you want to have partners who will also roll up their sleeves and start working with the entrepreneurs, and not just go after the PR value that that you get by working with startups. So that's those are the things that evolve. I think back 10 years ago it was much more easier. Not a lot of people want to touch startups. They were like, why on earth are we helping startups? We have other things to do. These guys are not going to do anything for the next 10 years. I'll come back when they are ready. But now it's completely different. Now everybody wants to do startups, right? So there's a lot more interest, and the way you manage all of that is that's what actually has evolved. I hope I answered the question.
Perfect. Yes, thank you. And we already have some questions in the chat, actually.
Right.
We will take them at the end of the session. But thank you very much for mentioning these two aspects of the knowledge and also the trust, the transparency, and working in the local ecosystem. I think these are critical topics. And I think these are also important when being part also as another organization, as is the case of Basil and the organization that he's working on that is part of the university. So, and now I would like to ask him, as as part of a university, what would you say that are the main benefits of partnering with academia? So having this very specific type of partnership, and also there's very specific context in being inside the university as well. Please let us know.
Yes, hi everyone. This is Basil from Palestine. Thank you very much, Nuria and ITC team, for this opportunity. I'm so happy to be with you and my colleagues from different countries and to participate in such great webinar. Regarding BTI, I will talk briefly about BTI. BTI is the Business and Technology Incubator. It is established in 2006 as a part of the Islamic University of Gaza in Palestine. We seek to enable the Palestinian youth by promoting their business ideas and accelerating their existing startups. Actually, being a part of the university add many benefits and advantages to BTI. For example, we have the access to use all the university resources like laboratories of the applied sciences faculties, and also we can use the machinery and the fabrication labs of the Faculty of Engineering. Moreover, in some trainings, we depend on many experts, many academic persons from the university to help us in delivering some trainings in the management trainings or in entrepreneurship and in many different topics. Another thing I would like to mention that as our university is considered one of the biggest and the oldest universities in Palestine. So it has a very good influence in the community that help us to always to use the media tools of this university when we have something to publish or to share, like when for example when we have announcements for call for applicants, call for business ideas. So we depend strongly on the media tools of the university, as it helps us to reach to thousands of graduates and to thousands of people inside Palestine. Of course, also we use the training rooms, the conference halls, the servers of the servers of the university. In fact, we use every resource found in the university that can help us in doing our job and our work. Finally, I would say that the university plays a very important role behind our success. In fact, I'm very grateful to the support and to the facilitations we have from them. I always say that one of my or of one of main our competitive advantages as a BTI is being a part of the Islamic University of Gaza. Being a part of such a great university helps us to do our work and to achieve every task we have in our plan. This is I wanted to say.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think this brings also a different perspective, right? Also comparing, so in particular with academia, all the resources, the machinery, the labs, the servers, the media access to it. So this is completely, let's say, a very specific way of partnering with an institution and also getting the most of this partnership. And I think that the topic of innovation is also very important when thinking about partnerships. But now maybe I will ask Sarah, because we know that you've been quite innovative in the way that you are creating partners. So how can hubs be creative and innovative to partner for access to finance in particular?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And thank you for hosting this, for inviting all of us here, and also really great to see so many partners from around the globe on this call, including some of our own partners. So I see some familiar names on here, so I'm glad we could all be together. So African Entrepreneur Collective provides training, consulting, and access to finance. we have our own in-house debt fund, and we run a lean budget. We did not capitalize a huge fund. We have to figure out ways to bring capital and resources to our entrepreneurs. And so we've been leveraging partners to be able to do that. When we first started off, we developed a partnership with Kiva, who many people know provides microgrants around the world. And so that was a really valuable partnership for us. We went through a process of due diligence where Kiva looked at us, they vetted us, we became a Kiva partner, which then allowed us to on-lend to the entrepreneurs that we work with. And so this partnership was really particularly valuable. We were able to leverage resources from another partner, but we had the on-the-ground knowledge and relationships. And so that's where the benefit really came for both of us. Like, Kiva doesn't want to have people on the ground. We didn't want to have to run, fundraise and manage a fund. And so having that partnership is really mutually beneficial. But I think it would have fallen apart if we didn't have aligned values. So I definitely agree with Chalinda that transparency and trust are key. And we mostly find transparency and trust around our shared vision and our shared values. So the work is challenging. You know, Nuria, you listed great challenges at the beginning of what are some detractions from being in a partnership. And you can actually give up some things to be in a partnership. So if you don't have that core alignment around values and vision from the beginning, every decision is going to be a struggle, right? So coming up with what your core operating principles are is key. And, you know, not every partnership is going to fit perfectly. And so you're going to be able to put energy and effort into different types of partnerships based on where you find the most alignment and the most mutual benefit. So for us, it's truly around, like, can we do right by the partner with what we said we were going to do, right? That's another way of building that trust, is like, you need to deliver. And also we have the high expectations from our partners as well. I mean, if we were to start giving really bad loans to our entrepreneurs, we would lose that credibility with our funding partner. And if our funding partner were to change their terms all of a sudden, we are put in a bad position with our entrepreneurs. So having that shared understanding, a long-term game plan, can really align you to make sure it's the right partnership, because they're, you know, a partnership that changes course midway can be a real challenge. So for financing, which is often a long-term game, there needs to be alignment there as well. I mean, if we had a funding partner that said, look, we're focused most on financial returns first, that would probably not be the right partner for us, because we're also measuring social impact. Are we creating jobs? Are we improving livelihoods? And so identifying the right financing partner for us also meant that we could then make sure that our brand is able to be seen in the communities in which we work and the way that we want to be represented. So aligning values as much as you're also aligning legal contracts, MOUs, all of those details, I think is really pretty critical to make sure you have a successful partnership.
Perfect. I think that everything that you're saying also fully aligns with what Chalinda is saying, and also what Basil said. Now I will turn to Janice, because I think that, as Sarah mentioned, having this fit between your values, your vision as an organization and as a partnership, and also agreeing on these core principles is critical. So why do you think that it is important that hubs partner with institutions like yours at ACCA Global? Maybe Janice, you can brief us a little bit on ACCA Global, and to also communicate to the rest of participants here, why do you think that it's important that hubs partner with you?
Great, thank you very much, Nuria. I think, you know, again, like the other panelists, well done for hosting this very important conversation, because it's through conversations that we create change. A little bit about ACCA. So we are ACCA Global. We were, an association, we're the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, and we are in over 170 countries. And we've been around since 1908, if you believe that. So we've been around, and I think one of the most important things for us is that we are here for the greater good. And being here for the greater good means, ethics and integrity at the center of everything that we do. And so why would, hubs partner with us? For us, partnerships that we've had is that SMEs governance is not very strong. Just this morning, we were having a conversation with an equity firm that was saying, listen, we do want to fund people, but we find that it's a family business and they don't have any paperwork, they don't have anything, but their business idea is really good. So for us, they were looking to us to then plug the hole in terms of skills. So how do you then help people build a business case that makes sense? How do you help people track, their profit and loss statements, even small things such as that? So that, it gives access, our partners get access into our member network. And then we also have what we call the professional insights reports, which are thought leadership pieces. And these thought leadership pieces delve deep into either challenges or opportunities in the business world where people can tap into. And a lot of the time, say for instance, in Zambia, we're working on building a paper around professional insights for what happens next. We had a global survey that included Zambia as well, that was talking about COVID-19 challenges. And there was a conversation around what happens next. And every economy is different. So for instance, for Zambia, while other economies are talking about rebuilding, we're talking about now sitting down and thinking what next. So it varies from country to country, and that global community is able to share their perspectives based on their skills, based on their experiences. So a lot of our ACCA members are CEOs, CFOs for Fortune 500 companies. Some of them are, work in audit firms. So they have that expertise that would be able to uplift or scale up an SME. A lot of the panelists were talking about transparency. They were talking about, the right fit. And I think transparency is very important. One of the biggest things that we've found, especially with some of our partners, is that they don't get to tell us everything. And this is where Sarah was talking about due diligence. It's so important. I can never understate that, because you will find that then you align yourself with somebody who doesn't have your value system as an organization. And so it's very important that you undertake your due diligence handling that. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. And I see thumbs up from Sarah. I guess that's good.
Perfect. So I think some of the key takeaways from this first round were related to trust and transparency. I think this was a theme that was across the board. Everyone agrees that this is key. And without the proper due diligence, like Janice just said, you cannot know if the partner shares your values, and if your values are aligned. This is also something key. I think also another thing that was mentioned is how you can leverage the partner in a way that it's a mutually beneficial partnership. So in the case of the university partnership, for example, you have the infrastructure, you have the expertise. In the case of Access to Finance, you have the shared values of not seeking profit at any cost, which I think is quite important as well when it comes to Access to Finance. And I think we see that overall, everyone agrees that it needs to be strategic. You need to think it thoroughly, because otherwise you could get burned. So yeah, I think like you said in the beginning, Nuria, this is definitely something that you need to think about carefully and strategically, because there are risks involved, but the benefits can also be quite rewarding. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So just so everyone knows, at the end of, we have 3 rounds of questions, let's say, and at the end of each round, we will do a little summary, and we will also share the notes with you in case you want to keep them, you want to review them, and so on. But now over to Julia.
Yeah, thank you, Mayara, Nuria, and of course, Sarah, Basil, Jalinda, and Janice for this great first round of questions. I think also maybe to the audience, if you feel we are missing something in the synopsis, Sarah just mentioned it, maybe you can now that we have heard what you value in partnerships and what kind of different approaches you employ to partner with other organizations, let us move towards kind of the best experiences you've had with partners, but also if there's good experience, we know there's also a lot of lessons learned, and especially that many of our panelists have been active in their ecosystems for several years. I'm sure they can provide some good examples and also bad examples here. Now this time to switch about a bit, let me start with Sarah. Sarah, could you tell us please a bit more about how partnerships evolve over time and also how you manage this evolvement? Because I think there's yeah, quite a different relationship whether you freshly start off to work with another organization or then after several years, maybe yeah, you even develop a more personal one. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So our organization has been around for almost 8 years. Relationships from other people, we wanted to align ourselves with bigger partners so that we could, you know, get validation for what we were doing. So early days, we just wanted to like partner with everybody we could to just learn and grow. And now the more established we've gotten, the much more selective we've gotten. So we do sort through on values and vision and, you know, are we each bringing something really meaningful to the table that is in alignment with our strategy. But I think one of the things that we also have seen, particularly during COVID as well, is that when there are curveballs that affect all of our businesses, we all react in different ways. So for example, one of the partners that we've had that I love working with is a vendor called Viamo, and it's a Canadian-based organization, but they use interactive voice response technologies. And so they were really phenomenal in helping us take all of our content for entrepreneurs and put it into digital format where we can push it out to entrepreneurs all across the country of Rwanda, including the micro entrepreneurs we work with in refugee camps. So we're doing, you know, we're reaching 9,000 entrepreneurs in the span of 3 days, right? Which there's no way we could have done that with that kind of timing. But one of the challenges is that as much as we want to work with this partner in the midst of this transition of COVID, everybody else wants to work with them as well, right? So they're opening, I think, 8 or 10 new offices this year. They've had a 425% increase in demand. So for us, that partnership was one that we've been building. And then in this critical moment, we were also able to really kind of count on that because we put the time in previously to build those relationships. And it did create shared value. They want to do research on what we're doing. We want to leverage their technology. We've co-written proposals. We've written them into proposals so that really the relationship is deepened over time so that it's become truly strategic for us. And I think there's also this conversation or this concept of co-opetition, right? We charge for our services. In the places where we don't charge for our services, we also are seeking funding. Other people are coming to those same funders. So how do we differentiate ourselves in the market and create a space for ourselves while also being quite collaborative with others in our universe. And so I think, when we talk about how partnerships evolve, the sort of concept of co-opetition is really can be a short-term strategy where you're in the same market with somebody, you're pooling resources to do R&D or to test out a concept or to pool knowledge or pool resources for technology. But then, so that's the cooperation part of the co-opetition. And then the competition part of co-opetition is really where you have your differentiation, and maybe you're competing for market share after you've done this work together to sort of understand things or build things. So I think that's also another way that relationships can evolve over time, is you can be partners for a season or for a duration. And I think it's important to know and almost like consensually agree to it, of like, okay, we're going to align for this piece, and then we're each going to be back in the free market sort of approach to leveraging what you learned together. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thanks a lot for these insights, kind of mentioning that partnerships should always provide a win-win for the ones you're partnering with, but also that some partnerships might be valuable in certain times, especially right now, as you were mentioning, reaching out to so many entrepreneurs, quickly adapting your delivery format. I think, that's really where valuable partnerships come in. I think also, Basil, moving to you now, in the discussions we were having prior to the workshop, you were mentioning that it's not always easy to get such support, to get technical assistance. So my question to you would be now, if you could share with us an experience, how partnership have supported you in this regard to get access to more technical assistance.
Okay, well, I agree with you. It is not easy to get access to technical assistance, especially in situations or in circumstances like what we face here in the Gaza Strip in Palestine, as we live in a siege, and it is not easy to me or to anybody from Gaza Strip to move freely outside the country. For example, before COVID-19, I participated in workshops and training activities in Europe, in Germany and Spain and Slovenia last year. It was the first time to me to go to outside Gaza Strip after 3 years. I don't know if you can imagine how is it it's very difficult to us to go outside to get technical assistance, to get training, to get or at least to see how the world is going outside the country. Anyway, we have very good experiences as a BTI in getting access to technical assistance. I'd like to mention, or I would like to talk about two good experiences we had here in BTI. The first one was during our strategic partnership with a Dutch organization, which is the Spark organization. It's a well-known organization, and it works in more than 25 countries. Spark helped us to develop an integrating curriculum for a one-year professional diploma in entrepreneurship. This diploma targeted the entrepreneurs or the graduates who already have the personality to be an entrepreneur. Many entrepreneurs from the Gaza Strip and from Palestine get this diploma certificate, and as a result, they were be able to think creatively. Then they founded their startups, and many of them are still working on their startups after more than 5 years of getting or be benefited from this diploma. Another success story or another experience I'd like to talk about, it's related to our being as a part of the university. our university has more than 150 European university partnership with European universities under the umbrella of Erasmus program. During the last few years, the BTI staff and myself, of course, we participated in many activities, many exchange programs in Europe. Such activities add great value to us. It helped us to build our capacities and to build the capacities of some of our mentors who are working with closely with BTI. Those experiences we got and the skills and the experiences we got from our participation in such activities have been reflected in our beneficiaries in terms of transferring the experience and the skills and the knowledge we got during our participation in some activities and events. Actually, in most of the projects we implement, we try to set some training and coaching activities to be provided by our partner. This is, I think, something very important to be added in our projects, that it will help to transfer knowledge and skills from our partner to us and then to our beneficiaries.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Basil, for sharing these two examples. And I think, especially as you are within a university, this is quite a specific hub, but it also allows you to access quite a different wealth of resources there. Going around the table, I would like now to turn to Chalinda. I think all of us know that we always learn from the experiences in the past. And maybe, Chalinda, you could share an example with us. If you can partner again with an organization, what would you do differently? Like, how would you change your approach towards them?
Sorry, interesting question. So one of the things, when we started, I think all of us got inspired by Silicon Valley. That's where entrepreneurship, that's where all the stories come from. And even in Sri Lanka, that's how we started off. It took, and I used to do a lot of, I think the first 4 years I spent ecosystem development. Then the next 4 years, I've been on the entrepreneur shoes. And now I'm on the other side of the table where I'm investing. So I've gone through that full cycle. One of the things that I learned very hardly is that, we try to recreate what the ecosystem or the partnership network that was there in the Silicon Valley in Sri Lanka. But what we didn't understand up, probably 2 years into that whole journey is that our customer, the entrepreneur, the Sri Lankan entrepreneur is very different to a Valley entrepreneur. You're talking about entrepreneurs who have gone through, they have the entrepreneurial genes essentially because their parents are entrepreneurs or their grandparents are entrepreneurs. Here, you're a first-time entrepreneur and you're a first-generation entrepreneur. The one thing that I would multi-billion-dollar organizations and MNCs in the financial sector. We have the largest CIMA qualified accountants outside the UK, and I think it's the same with ACC as well. But if you look at financial literacy in the country, is below 35%. And you can't really build a company if you don't have the financial literacy. And this is something that we learned. Similarly, we have very good entrepreneurs coming in, but they don't even understand what a cash flow is, what a P&L is. They haven't kept their books. And now even if we want to invest, we can't invest because there's no evidence of what they say. So right now we are incorporating all of that. So one of the things that I would do if I could go back is to bring in that financial known thing, right? But it's a very, very valuable piece that is there, and that's essential because it becomes essential whether you fail or succeed. If you fail, you don't know why your company failed because you didn't manage your capital, most likely. If you are succeeding and now you want to grow and you want to raise, whether it's debt capital or equity or even a bank loan, you need to be able to have the financial side of things. So that's one thing that I would, do differently. The second thing that I would do differently is that I would reach out to more international partners from day one. Being in Sri Lanka, emerging markets, we tend to have this what we call islander mentality. We are comfortable with whatever that is there. Only when we started going outside that we realize the world is, because here you can be a big fish in a small pond. All of a sudden, once you go out, you realize, wow, the world is so much bigger. Your product has potential, but you are nowhere ready to compete. And then you have to start that whole cycle of reinvesting in yourself, in your business. And what should have, if you started from day one, it would have taken you 5 to 7 years. Now it would take you, 10 to 15 years to get to that stage. So those are the two things that I would do. And I think reaching out to global partners has become much more easier in this COVID economy, because now it's just a digital platform. I've been part of, I'm now also part of 2 or 3 incubators, two in Singapore, 1 in Korea, where I do mentor startups. I'm a venture partner in a Singaporean fund as well. And you can do all this because now you're stuck at home. So your commute time is saved. So you're a lot more productive hours to engage. And that learning is far more important. I can give you one very simple example. There's a incubator that I'm part of called the Incubator Network, and we ran an oceans plastic challenge in Asia, and we had, I think, quite 25 countries startups applying. If you look at the Southeast Asian region, this ocean plastic is a massive problem. It's there in every single country, but everybody came up with different solutions. They had nothing in common. The business models are different. The revenue models are different. The way that they're planning on scaling the solutions are different. And all of a sudden you realize, oh, you know what? It's not just about me going and collecting the PET bottles and, giving somebody, some money and trying to recycle. There are other ways of solving that problem. So I think knowledge is truly, decentralized, and having those broader partnerships help you to grow yourself. I think that's the main thing for even the hubs and for any organization. Venture out and expand your horizons so that you can also accelerate your growth as well.
Thank you for that very nice summary. I think that links very well to what Sarah has said. Like in the beginning, maybe you try to reach out to as many partners as possible to get as much knowledge as possible, but then kind of you distill the partnerships when you move further. And I think it's also important. Yeah, what you mentioned there, COVID has provided us. I mean, also now we here can easily conduct these webinars and get so many different experience from different countries. And I think, this has been really helpful here. And I think your first example, how essential financial literacy is for any business model, for any startup, kind of perfectly links over to Janice for the last round, for the last question in this kind of second round of questions. Janice, it would be great if you could tell us now more from a partner perspective, because we've heard from Chalinda how it is kind of from the other side. What do you look for when partnering with a hub? Is there any specific criteria? How do you filter and then build these partnerships?
Thank you, Nuria. So the first thing that we normally look at in terms of sustaining, effective cross-sector partnerships is we obviously look for the soft attributes such as genuine commitment. We want to make sure that every partner that comes to the table is coming in good faith, and they're just not within a particular season and they'll leave us hanging when we've exposed them to the members. So I think that for us is very important, and we ask them to share, their vision and their definition of success. We also look at things like equity and respect. So as ACCA, we acknowledge that each organization brings value, and it doesn't matter the size of it doesn't matter the size of the organization or the size of the resource. It's important for us to acknowledge that everyone brings something important to the table, and that's why we have that partnership. And obviously, one of the other attributes is patience and persistence. We want to make sure that our partner won't leave, and that goes to the genuine commitment. When the chips are down. So it's having a conversation, because we're meant to enhance the relationship and enhance their vision. But if then they just leave us in the middle of nowhere, that makes it very difficult. So those are the pre-partnership conversations that we would have around what we're looking for. But other than that, we have the FIT framework that we have in place that assists us in coming up with the conversation. So there are 4 things that we look at: strategy, resources available, the organization, and culture. So for us, what's really important is, when we look at the strategy, are there strategic ambitions aligned to what we want to do? Say, for instance, one of the biggest things that we're doing as well now, post-COVID, is assisting our economies globally recover. So are the strategic ambitions, aligned? Are we compatible? Is our partner, is their strategy credible? Because we don't want people coming to us as well with, building castles in the air. It's very important that you have a credible strategy in place. And how committed are you? Under the resources, we also look at what kind of resources would you need? What kind of people do you need? Do you need any financial, do you need any financial resources to help you scale up? And a lot of the times we deal with both incubators and accelerators. So I think that resources conversation is important for us to know how we can best support. Because again, like I mentioned earlier, we don't want to fit into the plan of the hub. And one of the other things under organization for us is decision making. Who makes the decisions, and how fast can you make the decisions? Because once we get started, after all those preliminary conversations, after the MOUs are signed, we usually like to hear from you as quickly as possible. And one of the biggest things that we've struggled with is that the decision making is either takes too long, or it just doesn't come when you need it to come. And finally, the culture. What are your values? And socially, who are you in the social space? We also are very, as I mentioned earlier, we're very particular that ethics and integrity are the center of everything we do. And that comes into the whole due diligence. And are you risk averse? What's your level of risk adversity? So those are some of the things that we look at. So before we get into anything else, these conversations are very important. And that's where transparency comes in. And we have a conversation, because even before we do the due diligence, that conversation has to happen in order for you to trust us as well, and not feel like we're intruding too much into your business. I think that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice, for kind of leading us through the different steps on how you partner with different organizations, kind of coming from the initial screening and then presenting to us the framework and how to select them, how important their strategy is, if they're committed, if they have, of course, the resources needed, and then the right team culture and values in place. I think that's in the end what it comes down to, because you want to partner with someone you can relate to. And if, your values don't match, I guess it's going to be difficult. This was kind of the last intervention for this round. I now turn to Mayara to kindly ask you to share on the Jamboard the most important points made. Yes, Mayara, please.
Thanks, Julia. Yes, so another super interesting round. I almost ran out of space in the Jamboard for all the notes and insights that we have collected. I want to draw your attention to the post-its that are in green, because I think they have some key points that were discussed here. I really love this concept of co-petition, that Sarah has raised, this thin balance between cooperation and competition, because sometimes your partners are also your competition in some other spheres, and you need to be careful about that. But do not let that stop you from finding the right partners and to collaborate with them. I also like the theme of networking and how regional and international networks can help you access the right expertise. As Chalinda has mentioned, knowledge is decentralized, and if you can reach out to more international partners from the start, you can also find out very early on some new challenges that you haven't thought about, but also get some good insights in terms of your market potential or market access, etc., that could be very helpful to your entrepreneurs. And to wrap up, I love the 4 pillars shared by Janice. I think it's very clear and it makes a lot of sense based on what all of the others have been saying. I think it summarizes quite well. And I love that you talked about genuine interest, intentions, and commitment, because at the end of the day, we want to be able to trust the partners, like we have said in the previous round, and also have some transparency to what are their intentions and what's going to happen next with this partnership so that this can evolve. So I think we can all take those 4 pillars with us, take it home and start to apply that in the next partnerships that we negotiate. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for this great summary, Mayara. Yeah, I think we have definitely some good takeaways, which we will also share later on in our LinkedIn group. Now kind of going towards the final round of questions. Nuria, I hand it back over to you.
Sure. Thank you. And thank you, Mayara. That it was really helpful to have this one pager of the second round. Now we move into the third round and final. And we will start to know a little bit more on how to get the right partners. So really how to make it really, really good on partnerships. So I will start asking to Chalinda. And it would be good if you tell us, what do you think is important to keep in mind when engaging with new partners, and how do you reach out to them, and how do you validate the partnership?
Right, I think there's 3 questions there, so I'll start with the second and the third. How do you reach out to partners? I think in our case, because we've been in this game for about 10 years, there's a lot of tacit knowledge that we've built. We also, we've been in multiple shoes, right? So as an entrepreneur, failed several ventures, lost a lot of money, and you have that whole, gone through that cycle. So right now, I think we get a lot of inbound requests purely based on the work that we've done, and because we are very hands-on. So then it's about how do you curate who wants to, partner with. I think the way that we've done it is we do short-term engagements with certain organizations. So it's not a partnership per se. It's not a long time. It might, very recently, there's a group that have come up. They want to work, partner with us to work with the female entrepreneurial side. And the question that I always ask myself is, what's in it for them? Why is this organization, wanting to partner with us? What's that? And I try to, that's a question that they should ask themselves, but I ask that question from myself so that I can evaluate them a little bit more better. And you have a discussion. And as I mentioned earlier, what we typically say is if we already have programs, we want to get them on board, get them, involved in those activities, and we see how they operate. So because I think, as Janice also mentioned, values, and Sarah also mentioned, values are important, but a lot of people are very good at putting fancy value propositions in pitch decks, and you don't see that in the actions. So that's very important. So that when we start working with them, we really see, okay, how do they operate? How does the documentation process works? All of that. The third question was in how do you reach out to these people? Honestly, I've been reaching out on LinkedIn. I think that's how I've built a lot of these platforms over the years, partnerships, sorry. And it's purely based on LinkedIn right now. But I mean, if you want to make it more formal, so last December, we entered into a strategic partnership with the Ford Foundation. They love the work that we've been doing, and they came on board. They gave us a grant to expand about 8 of our programs, and I think that's key. As a hub or an incubator of an accelerator, you want to have your strategy, and you want to be able to share the impact that you've created. A lot of the hubs share the output. I think what they need to share is the outcome. Okay, we ran a 3 months program, 5 people graduate, you'll have a demo day and there's a big party and that's it. 3 months down the line, are the companies still there? Are they growing? Did they find that information valuable? That's the information that is valuable. And the more you publish it, the more people that you will attract. So that's in majority of the time, it's all inbound. We are looking at doing specific outreach programs. For an example, we are trying to build certain partnerships with embassies. And the reason why we are trying to do is I firmly believe that the Sri Lankan expats, commonly known as diaspora, plays a very crucial role in building your ecosystem. It gives you access to more mature markets. It gives you access to knowledge. It also gives you, more importantly, access to capital. So how do you bring me? And then, we're trying to build this strategy. And the way that we're doing it is also, you start off by building a program, a strategy around it. You need to, discuss it with maybe 1 or 2 embassies. You do a pilot run. You take that results, and then you go and say, after fine tuning it, look, we've done this. Now we want to work with you. And the way this started, this is a strategy that I've been working for 2 years. So there's a lot of number crunching that I did. So I realized that, the number of Sri Lankan expats, it used to be migrant workers, domestic workers that are going, but that number has been declining. And the professionals that are outside have been increasing about 2.5x every year on year. And typically remittances are about 5% of your income. So if you really look at the net worth of all these Sri Lankans who are living outside, it's larger than the Sri Lankan economy itself. So even if they were to put in, 1% of that income into startups, you can support a lot of entrepreneurs. So that's how we build the strategy. So the story around it, how does it, work into a bigger could you tell me the first question? I think I missed the first question that you asked.
I think it was also about it was in the same line. So it was, what do you think it's important to keep in mind when engaging the new partners? So I think you've covered through the other answers. But thank you very much for all these tips, also on partnerships, on how to reach them on LinkedIn, on also linking with the embassies, and also on the difference between showing output or outcome results. I think this is really critical, and we see this also all the time, also in the hubs and with the entrepreneurs that we work with. So I think that those are very, very good tips for the participants that are here as well. Now I will move to Janice, because since you are a partner yourself as well, we would like to know some of the do's and don'ts when approaching you as a partner, meaning you as ACCA Global.
Thank you so much. I think one of the most important things for us is come to us with a plan or a wish list, because I think one of the biggest things that we've seen with a lot of especially smaller partners, they come in and they kind of don't know what we have to offer or what they want from us. So I think it's very important, have your list and be clear about what you want, and we'll be able to have a better conversation and a more productive conversation around what we can do for you and what we can't do for you. And for us is we also want to know what is your governance, you know, how many people do you have, even if you don't have the structures in place, but just to talk about this is our wish list and this is where we want to be. We are not currently where we'd like to be, but we would like in the future to maybe have, you know, board of directors and all of that. I think that's really important. The things not to do is not to have the hard conversations, because the hard conversations need to be had. And so I think one of the biggest things that you need to, you know, you need to remember when you're coming to us is also tell us the duration of the partnership, what you see it evolving into. If you would like to invite new partners as you scale up, it's important that you let us know in advance. Sometimes it's not possible, but I think it's just that transparency that is required. And don't come to us without an exit strategy. I think everything else, you know, needs to have an exit strategy. And we need to be able to measure how we're helping and the impact of that partnership. And yeah, what is your exit strategy? If you say you want to partner with us for most of our MOUs, actually partnership agreements, are usually 2 years. But after 2 years, what then? Do you want to continue with us, or is it something that you want to review? So very clear information is important, so that then we can use that as a yardstick for performance, because we also measure our own performance as a partner. I think, yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. That was very clear on the do's and don'ts. I really love the one that it's not to forget to have the hard conversations. So I think that's also very important, because sometimes we want the partnership so bad that we don't want to have this bad conversation as well. So thank you for that. Now we will move to Basil to know from your experience, what is the best way to approach a partner?
Okay. Firstly, it is good to have a good strategy to reach out partners and also to maintain them. I think one of the best ways is to have good new partners is to prove to them that you have the capacity and you have the ability to achieve success together. Partners, I think all of us know that partners usually seek to carry out valuable activities with the great impact on the ground. Therefore, you should have the ability to convince those partners or those potential partners that you are fully committed and ready to achieve something good. As a BTI, we always search for partnership with similar organizations, for incubators, accelerators from the Gaza Strip, from another cities in Palestine, and also from the Middle East, sometimes from Europe and from other places around the world. We try to, and also in some cases, we try to submit proposals to any call for proposals, announcements, like to get fund from new partners, from local or international partners, once we are eligible to submit to this announcement. Sometimes we participate in international events that we promote, that we can promote our work and success. Then try to build good relationships with the new organizations and new partners. It is good to have a good partnership and to maintain this good partnership and to approach your partner very well. I think from my opinion and from my experience, it is good to have a partnership agreement with your partner. And also it is will be very good to clearly identify the roles, the objectives to both partners. And finally, I think it is important to set up times to reevaluate and to reassess the partnership and the relationship with this partner, and to reevaluate what you achieved in the last period. This is I wanted to mention and to say.
Perfect. Thank you. And I think also this re-evaluation is really critical, because sometimes it's when we get trapped in partnerships and we think that they are still beneficial, but sometimes they are not. And doing this exercise of re-evaluation really help to also see if what we're doing is really providing impact to our organization. So I fully agree with you on this. And then we will move now to Saram for the last question of today. So how do you get the right partners to support you in areas that you are that are not your focus?
Yeah, getting the right partners is key. It's you're entering into a relationship, so you're figuring all that out with each other. And we had for a while planned our expansion strategy to expand through partners. And we had an experience with one of our expansion strategies, and we expanded through a partner, and it didn't go the way we wanted it to. We weren't prepared to be to sort of live up to our end of the bargain. We hadn't gone through the 4 pillars that Janice mentioned on decision making and some of those things. And so like it was really interesting in the sort of post-mortem of that with our board of directors to say, okay, what are the lessons learned? What would we have done differently? And one of our board members, who is he's a VC, he's like, look, expansion strategies, you should either build it yourself or buy it, right? Like if it's your core thing that you're doing, own it, right? Build it or buy it. And that has been for us really clear. Like if it's our core thing, we're gonna really make sure that it meets all of our needs, like 1,000%. But yet we have some other objectives that may not be our core thing, right? Like, so for example, policy advocacy. We're not a policy organization. We don't have the right skill set. We don't have the right passion to change policy. We've got some stipulations from some of our funders to not really be super active in the policy front, but yet we know that can create the right enabling environment for our work and for our entrepreneurs. And so we have an interest in seeing that done, but we're never going to take the lead on that. So for example, right now there's a group called I4P, so Innovation for Policy. And they're based in Rwanda. They are doing work across the continent, though. They're working, I think, with like something like 157 hubs in 43 countries across Africa to come up with really pro-entrepreneur policies. So we're delighted to be like one of their partners. We're not building a whole policy arm. We're not buying an advocacy firm, but we're really delighted to have somebody who has completely complementary skills where, we can get clear communication from them. We have like the expectations of us are really clear. And that is a really phenomenal partnership to be able to sort of participate in that. So build or buy or partner where you can't. And I think this also sort of works with HR strategy as well too. Like, when do you shift from having a consultant to bringing somebody on full time, right? Like you may have a consultant when it's not something that is business critical, right? Like maybe you need somebody to set a short-term strategy and you hire a consultant to do that, or maybe you need a quick audit, you hire a consultant to do that. But then when it truly is part of your core operations, then you're going to want to have that in-house. And so we have that kind of notion in partnerships, and also as we continue to build our team for our own growth.
Perfect. Thank you, Sarah. I think I fully agree with you that sometimes it's also difficult to decide we don't need to get into this. We do not need to do this if this is not our focus. Therefore, we will trust our partners to do a wonderful job, and that's where we will stop. And I think that's a very important process. And without also a clear strategy, it's also very difficult to differentiate when you need partners to do so, or when you want to do it. So that's another discussion, but I think it's very critical what you've mentioned here. I will now leave the floor to Mayara to give us the summary of this round 3.
Thanks, Nuria. Thanks, everyone. I think for a final round, we got some really good insights on do's and don'ts and how you can take all those insights forward and apply it to your own partnership strategy. I want to draw attention to the issue of clarity. I think this is really important. Janice has mentioned it, but also the others as well. Be clear about what you want, be clear about also what you have and what you can offer so that you can be prepared to live up to your end of the bargain, as Jen put it. Also, communicate well your impact so that you can attract partners and you don't have to be actively looking for all of them. They will come to you. I think this is also a lesson learned, that you should use your track record. You should use what you have already done to communicate well, to raise visibility to your own institution. And based on that, you can be the one curating partners rather than looking out for them all the time actively. And finally, I think it's always good to look out for partners and for new opportunities. So take the time to evaluate the partnership and the achievements, what they can bring to you, and also to prove to them, to convince them that you can be successful together. I think this is the bottom line, right? We want a partnership that is mutually beneficial. So if it's very clear what they can bring to you, what can you bring to them, you have to also spend some time convincing them so that you can also clearly state your objectives and have this also hard conversation at the beginning of what is your wish list, what you can do for each other, and at what point do we need an exit strategy, and how we're going to measure success, for how long this is going to be a partnership, etc. And by this point, evaluate it, reevaluate it, the achievements, the relationship, and whether it's worth expanding on it, continuing the partnership, or maybe it has already come to the end of a mutually beneficial situation, and it's time to move to the next partner. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Maya, very much for this good summary on how to communicate well your achievements, your strength, and also your contributions to then create such mutually beneficiary partnerships. And always, like in the beginning, maybe think about how then you will also might end this partnership. As I've written in the chat box, if there's still some questions or comments, feel free to type them, or as we are a fairly small group, you can also unmute yourself and directly ask our great panel. Yeah, I give you some seconds to think about this, and otherwise we would come to a closure of this webinar. So if there's no further comments, I think this shows how much we have covered in this 3 round of questions, how much in-depth knowledge our different panelists have provided. So thank you very, very much for this. It was really a pleasure for us to have you here. And also, as Nuria was saying in the beginning, we will share the presentation, the Jamboard, with the emails you've provided us, and also feel free here, please, to join our LinkedIn group, because I think, as all of you were mentioning, networks are key. Sharing best practices is key, so everyone can get the most out of it. In the LinkedIn group, we will also inform you about the next webinar, which will probably take place end of November, and we hope to see a lot of your familiar faces there. So I think now, as we have covered the different stages of how to develop a partnership, how to evaluate partnership, I think the key takeaways are that transparency, trust, and commitment from your partners, but also from yourself, is important when engaging with partners. It's important that you're clear about your expertise, the value you can bring to the partnership. And as a partnership is always based on values, it's also important here to be clear on that. And I think when you keep this in mind, building future partnerships will be very successful. And yeah, if you have further questions, feel free to reach out to us in the LinkedIn group. And yeah, thank you for joining today. Bye-bye. Oh, Nuria, do you want to have a last word?
No, that's okay. I think we can all connect on the LinkedIn group. I just wanted to thank all our speakers today, because I think it was really, really to the point and really good information. And I can see a lot of comments on the chat. So, and I've seen that some questions got solved during the during the session. So just thank you all again for coming here and for your really good comments, and I look forward to continuing engaging with all of you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's
Thank
our
you. Bye-bye.
pleasure. Thank you.
Everybody.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.